Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it. Welcome to Lord of the Rings, the Living Card Game Progression Series. I'm the White Tower Watchman. This is a very special episode of the Progression Series. It's going to be the first time of probably many times where I will take a sidestep from the normal Progression Series and either do a rewind or an aside. And this particular video is going to be Passage Through Mirkwood, the very first quest in the entire 9-year run of this game. We're going to redo this video for a couple of reasons. One, a esteemed member of the community brought to my attention, well, multiple people actually, that the music was too loud in the first video. I've got that corrected. So not only am I going to use a more appropriate volume music, Artem, another esteemed member of the community, asked for me to post links to these decks, which I thought was a fantastic idea. This can give all brand new players a crash course or a jump start or a foundation, something they can reference. So I'm going to put links. I've created a fellowship to the two decks that I'm using on RingsDB, and I'm going to put links to those decks in the comments below. Well, and in the video description below as well. So that's going to give you a baseline of the starting point of where we started in this progression series. If you want to go card for card and see everything I used, it takes 2 core sets or proxies to make these decks. So if you and a friend have a core set, you throw them together, you each pick 2 spheres, play with your cards or whatever. It's not that hard to proxy. If you only have 1 core set, it's not that hard to proxy the cards that you need. There's only a couple of them. And so, better music. We got the links to the decks in the description. The community has spoken. Great ideas. They're now implemented. And also, I want to go back to the first quest, do a smooth, perfect playthrough as possible, because there were a couple mistakes in there, a couple triggers I missed, while also explaining some of the same concepts that I explained in that video that you couldn't hear with the loud music. And this is the most important video of the whole series. That's why I want to get it right, because this is the one that the new players are going to jump right into. This one and the very next quest, the Journey Along the Anduin, those are probably the 2 videos that most new players will watch the most. So this is particularly going to be for them. I might go slower in this video than I usually do, as I went slower in the original Passage Through Mirkwood, and that's deliberate. And I want to talk about concepts as we go. I don't want to go too slow to so veterans players can't have a good time, but I'm gonna do my best to play to all audiences. Okay, and also it'll give us a chance to see if we draw that Ungoliant spawn, and because we had a pretty easy run of the first quest in the first video, so you have a 50-50 chance to draw the boss enemy. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Our decks are based more around questing, so we don't really want to draw the boss enemy, but this will give that 50-50 another chance to flip and draw the boss enemy. So let's get started. Here's the decks I'm using, and these links will be posted in the comments and in the video descriptions below. This is the Aragorn, Theodred, and Legolas deck. The idea behind this is you have a respectable threat, a starting threat of 29. You've got a defender, an attacker, and a resource generator. You've got a leadership base of card pool, a leadership based deck from the leadership card pool, and you have cheap tactics on the side to supplement that. Now the idea with the dual sphere decks in the core set, if you're going progression run, if you're doing your progression run and you're having trouble, the reason the dual sphere decks work so well in the early days of the game, and the first 2 expansions, is because, say you're playing a 2-player game, that's where the game is most balanced, right? That's probably what most people are going to do, is play 2 players or play 2-handed. 2 players and 3 players are very good player counts in this game. 4 is a little too much. And 1, if you got 1, you might as well play 2-handed. And as I said in the last video, if you're having trouble playing 2-handed, the best practice is to play 3-handed. And playing solo is great to learn the rules. Playing solo is great all around. There's no wrong way to play this game. But I highly recommend at least giving two-handed a shot. I've never went back. I pretty much played two-handed as soon as I got the game, opened up the game 9-10 years ago. Just dawned on me. It's kind of balanced and meant to run as a two-player game because of the keywords. So, what this allows you to do is to have a good defender, a good attacker, and a resource generator in one deck with a nice set of balanced cards, okay? And if you have a dual sphere deck, this is the point I was trying to make. If you got a dual sphere deck, you basically are going to get 2 leadership resources guaranteed every round in 1 tactics. So that's going to be kind of your cost curve right there. So you're going to want to include a lot of low cost cards. If you're playing 2 players with 2 dual sphere decks, you're going to want cards that cost essentially 2 or less from your main sphere and 1 or less from your side sphere. Okay? Now, with the card pool being very limited, if you were just to throw together a leadership deck, okay, and you put your 50 cards in there and whatever, you got 2 core sets and you got your Hunt for Gollum pack, a couple packs, and you put your 50 cards in there, you might, it'd probably be a great deck. It's just that when you have the 2 spheres, now you have 2 spheres that you can pull from to get all those 0 cost, 1 cost, 2 cost cards. And then you got 2 players doing the same thing. You got all your spheres and all your cheap costs covered. And you're only guaranteed to play a 0, 1, or 2 cost card every turn. And that's if you don't have like effects that take resources, which are essentially mana in this game, away from your heroes. That's what you can afford to play. So that guarantees that you can play something every turn. It's all about those cheap cards in the early game, okay? And also just the fact that these 6 heroes are going to complement each other. We're going to have Aragorn, we're going to have Legolas, we're going to have Theodred. I'll talk about the other 3 heroes in the other deck in a second. But what Aragorn and Theodred do is they act as they got a little bit of willpower, they got resource generation, they got a little bit of readying, they have good all-around stats for Aragorn, good attack and hit points for Theodred. Aragorn is the one hero we're running in this series that's like a really high cost hero. He's like your big beefy hero that costs a lot to play him. But at the same time, we are keeping our threat at a respectable level of 29, so we're not going too crazy. We're just kind of doing a jack of all trades deck. And Aragorn's that like heavy artillery card, You can ready him in the early round with his ability. Let's just take a look at him right now. With his ability, it says after he commits to a quest, you can spend 1 resource from his resource pool to ready him. So even if you have absolutely nothing to play, you can use him twice a round instead of once a round, like most heroes. And his stat line is pretty amazing. Okay, he's got the extra 3 attack. Everything else is solid with the 5 hit points and a Sentinel trait. Sentinel meaning he can defend for the entire board. In this game, usually you can only defend enemies that are engaged with you. But because Aragorn's on the table, we're going to be able to defend anytime we want for any player on the board, essentially the other player. And then Theodred's like acts as his squire, so when he commits to the quest, you add a resource to any hero's resource pool who's also committed to the quest. So you're probably going to do that every round to generate the resource. Now you can run this character without Aragorn, and he is absolutely fantastic. He has a low threat cost, and it's the lowest leadership threat cost you're going to find for a long time in this game, at 8, which is very nice, and generates a resource around. So even if you're playing 2 tactics heroes, I mean, that's fantastic. You quest with Theodred and Thalin, or Theodred and Gimli, he generates that extra resource no matter what. You pretty much want to do that every round, okay? But what that can do is it can be set up with a combo with Aragorn. So you can generate that resource, and then you can ready Aragorn, okay? Because Aragorn has this thing that says, when he commits to a quest, you can spend a resource to ready him. So you use Theodred to give Aragorn a resource, and you spend that resource to ready Aragorn. It's a combo you can do every round with those 2 heroes that total a cost of 20 threat, 12 and 8. So they balance each other out in the threat cost there. Then you got Legolas. Since Aragorn can defend for anything on the board, and he has a respectable attack and willpower of his own right, Legolas is our dedicated killer. Okay, he comes in, he does one thing. He kills stuff. He's got 3 attack, he's got the range keyword, and every time he kills something, he creates progress, which is the ultimate way you win the game. So he's going to be our dedicated killer. He also has the range keyword, so if Aragorn's going to defend for everything on the board with Sentinel, he can attack anything on the board. Just like defending, you generally can only attack the enemies that are in front of you, engage with your player. But with the range keyword, you can attack anything, engage with any player. Okay? So here's what we got. We got an assortment of allies here, all leadership in Gandalf. You always want to use Gandalf with leadership. He's amazing. He's the only neutral card in the game, so if you have 4 spheres, purple, green, red, blue, which is leadership, lore, tactics, and spirit, he's the only card in the core set that actually doesn't belong to any sphere. He's a neutral card, which matters more later, but really all you need to know about him right now is he comes in, he stays in for 1 round, he helps you out. Costs a lot, but there's ways you can trick him into play. And then when he comes into play, either draws you 3 cards, deals 4 damage to enemy, or lowers your threat by 5. So it's very well rounded. He can do absolutely anything you need him to do, and that stat line is absolutely incredible, but again, you only get him for 1 round when you play him. Alright, the rest are like cheap 3 cost or lower leadership allies, with the exception of Faramir, who we're running 2 copies of, who's going to be sort of your willpower boost. That's your willpower booster right there. Alright, got 2 Calabrian Stone, which are also willpower boosts. They're unique. You can only have 1 in play at a time, but increases your willpower by 2. It's the only card in the game that in 1 card for 2 costs, in 1 attachment I should say, increase your willpower by 2, at least for a long time. If you put it on Aragorn, he also gains a spirit resource icon. So if we were running Leadership Spirit, which is a very viable deck, I recommend everyone try, that gives you leadership, that gives you resource smoothing within those 2 spheres. And Leadership Spirit is a great deck to build if you're playing one-handed. Absolutely fantastic. I would recommend you take a look at it. Okay. I also got one of the best cards in the game, if not the best card in the game, Steward of Gondor. Pays for itself the first turn it comes out. Give somebody the Gondor trait, and then every single round you generate 2 resources extra on top of the 3 that your 3 heroes will generate every turn, because every turn each hero generates 1 resource. And resources are the way you pay for every card in the game. It's basically mana. Horn of Gondor is an alternate. We're running 2 of these. It's an alternate card to generate resources with. After a character is destroyed, you add 1 resource to its resource to the attached hero's resource pool. Okay, it's unique. So you, again, just like the Steward of Gondor and Calabrian Stone, you can only have 1 on the table at any one time. We usually like to toss this to the other player if we draw the Spirit. If we draw the Steward of Gondor first, we can toss this to the other player, or we can put it on our own guys. It doesn't really matter. But it's nice to have a little extra resource generation. This is also the only tactics card in the entire game for a very long time, until a certain ranger comes out about 4 expansions from now that generates resources when you engage enemies. But this is the only resource generation card in tactics for the foreseeable future for damn near half the game's life cycle. Okay. And then these Bladed Gondolanes combo with Legolas because they give him +1 attack when he's attacking orc. That's just icing on the cake. What they really do is it's a cheap weapon, and you can throw 2 of them on Legolas because they're restricted. And all restricted cards, by the way, every hero has 2 restricted slots they have for items and attachments and things. So you can only have 2 restricted attachments on every character. After the hero attacks and destroys an enemy, you place 1 progress token on the current quest, which complements Legolas's ability. And if I get 2 of those on him, he can place a total of 4 progress on the quest with 3 separate card effect triggers. And I'm not going to talk about every single event we're running, but basically it's, you know, the highlights are Sneak Attack for Gandalf. That's going to help our Gandalf combo. Valiant Sacrifice will draw cards. For Gondor, Blade Mastery. Those are ways of boosting up people's stats. Ever Vigilant and Grim Resolve are ways to ready your party. And of course, Quick Strike and Feint are your bread and butter for your Legolas tricks, your cheap tactics events. Now, I should just mention before I slide over to this other deck here, I'm explaining things in this video. It's intended to explain things in depth, but not every single rule. So I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go in great depth to every single rule of the game, because these videos are intended for people who, if you've made it this far and you're looking up this game on YouTube, you're probably already interested in the game. You've probably played a couple games. These videos are people who have read a rule book, or at least a general turn structure. They've probably sat down and tried to play a game or 2. They know you can run 3 heroes in your deck. You run a 50 card deck. You can run 3 copies of any card. That basic stuff you already know that. We're gonna do some like turn, basically a demo game where we go through the turn structure and things like that. But it's really intended you've already played a couple of games. We'll say that for the Passage Through Mirkwood video here. Okay. Now, for other three heroes, we got Eowyn, Eleanor, and Barivor. It's probably Eleanor because we're in Middle Earth or whatever. So, Rohan, Gondor, and the Dunedain Ranger. So, these three heroes complement our other three heroes. Because, like I said, we have a defender, an attacker, and a resource generator. Well, now we have a quester, a card draw person, and someone who can cancel effects. So, you have all your bases covered for everything you need to do for any fundamental quest in this game. There's certain quests they're going to throw you for a loop. They'll make your setup crazy. They'll do something weird to your heroes. Maybe you'll only start with one hero. Maybe they'll capture a hero. Maybe they'll cripple your party. Maybe they'll pull all the items and weapons out of your deck and your allies before you get started. Or like Escape from Mount Graham or some quest way later in the card pool that comes out. But for right now, with these fundamental quests where you're just learning the game, these 6 heroes complement each other very well and they cover all your bases. Okay? So we got ourselves a quester with her 4 willpower, highest in the game. Until the end of this, this is the highest willpower character in the entire game, for the entire game, unless I'm forgetting someone. All right, and we got our balanced stats here. A lot of rangers have these balanced stats. Aragorn gets an extra attack and extra hit point because he's amazing, and an extra keyword. But for the most part, this 10 threat, these balanced stats, good hit point sync. That's like your general ranger character is going to be like that. Then you got Eleanor. This is an example of a character with not very good stats. She's a respectable defender, but she has low hit points. You're running a character like this for its ability. There's a lot of characters you run specifically for their ability, not for their stats. That's why she has low threat cost. You're basically running this character. This character is to cover a blind spot in your deck for that one card, that one treachery that you just don't have really no answers for, or you haven't drawn into your test of will, or whatever it is. She can cancel. In a 2-player game, you reveal 2 cards around every round, so she can, if any one of those cards is a game ender, something that's going to cripple your party, it's going to zap you for that last hit point you had on Eowyn or whatever, she can cancel that card and get you another card. Now, I know that seems like, well, it's not that great. No, trust me, it is great. It is fantastic. I run this hero so much all the time, and basically it is a game saver. There's those games where you've got everything, you've got your whole game going, everything is going great, tempo's great, you're about to win. And what do a lot of people I hear gripe about for good reason on the forums is that a lot of these cards, these treacheries are like, you were doing everything great and they just completely change the whole game. Well, that's what she's for. She's to save your game. She's your insurance policy. So we got our allies here. We're the 2 we're going to turn to the most, since we're mostly dealing with spirit resources, is the Northern Tracker, who's the basis of all location control for the entire game. He's amazing. He's a high cost, but he's got great stats, and he's a ranger, and he says after he commits to a quest, you place 1 progress token on every location in the staging area. That is incredible, and you will see that hopefully later. We're running 3 of those. We're running 3 Wandering 2 because this is a great jump blocker all around the board. He can go wherever you need him to go. And he's also got good stats, and he can attack and quest if you need him to. Alright, and then we have our lore support. Okay, so we'll talk a little about that. I'm running 2 Henmarths. He's just a cheap guy. You can get out there, you can defend a really big enemy that you don't want to defend with hero with, for one. You can scry the deck, the top card of the deck, lets you look at the top card of the bad guy's deck every turn. That's really good. It's a great, unique ally to run. You can only have 1 of them play at any one time. Is your Sylvan representation. Here's one of the few Rohan cards in the lore sphere. Gleowine is the Rohan minstrel. I think this is like a tavern harp player there. It's real simple. He just complements Barivor's ability. Barivor lets you draw 2 cards around. You pick a player, it draws 2 cards. This lets you pick a player and draws another card. So there you go. And then we got our healing. We got 2 of these. Daughter of the Nimmerdell. She's expensive, but heals 2 damage to any 1 hero in play when you exhaust her. And that's what she does, and that's all she does. But it's still really good. And Miner of the Iron Hills are 4 conditioned attachments. Anytime those spiders web you up, there's a Marvel reference. You can play these Miner of the Iron Hills for 2 and get that conditioned attachment off your hero. Now, one thing you notice is I've run a lot of green allies and not only one green. So how am I going to pay for all this stuff? Well, it's real simple. Like I said, we're mostly going to pay for these guys. That's what really our bread and butter is. But if you look at this card here, Stand and Fight, this is why Spirit's such a great sphere. If there's one sphere that probably is like the centerpiece of the entire game, of the entire run of this game, it's Spirit and Leadership. Those are the two spheres that are like your centerpieces. And then Lore and Tactics are sort of your tricks, your spike damage, spike healing, tricks. They're the icing on the cake. But in the beginning of the game, Spirit and Leadership in a two-player game is really going to form your willpower foundation, and also your ability to keep going. So this card here, Stand and Fight, lets you pull any ally in any player's discard pile and put it into play. And you just pay the cost of the ally. So you could technically, the combo is you could discard any one of these allies from your hand to boost up Eowyn's ability, which say discard one card from your hand to give Eowyn +1 willpower. Then you could get that, she gets +1 willpower, you get an ally into a discard pile, and then you go ahead and stand and fight it with Spirit resources, which is great. You can play a green ally with Spirit resources, and that's why they're all support, because these are all conditional. You don't always need this guy, but when you need him, you really need him. Then you, if a treachery comes out in the quest phase that like webs up one of your people, like caught in a web, you ditch him into the discard pile in the quest phase, and then in the same damn phase, you use Stand and Fight to get it off. Same thing, if you need that, if you absolutely need that healing in a pinch, throw her in the discard pile and pull her out with Stand and Fight. Alright. And then here we got our attachments. Dark Knowledge lets us look at a shadow card. This is really good on Legolas, and it's really good on Denethor, and it's really good on Eleanor, because they're not questing anyway. It's like looking into the Palantir. You have to reduce your willpower by 1 to play this card, but that's well worth it on characters who don't use willpower. Okay, we got 3 forest snares in case big bad guys come out, we can snare them up. 3 Protectors of Laureen. This is a great card all around. I run 3 of these. I'd say at least 2 of these you want to run. Unexpected Courage, you're running 2, one of the best cards in the game. It's real simple. You put it on a hero, you exhaust this card, you ready that hero. Okay. Aragorn, Theodred, Barivor, Legolas, those are all great targets. You put this on Legolas, he kills 2 enemies around, you create 4 progress. That means you can hang back on the quest phase a little bit, you don't have to send everybody. You can keep that rear guard ready to fight. Favor of the Lady is just a general attachment you want to use. Put that on Eowyn, give her +1 willpower if you can't find the Galadriel Stone. Another thing about Galadriel Stone in Favor of the Lady that's really important is, say you stack all these willpower attachments on Eowyn, you might get away with, and even say you even put a Protector of Laureen on her, so you can discard up to 3 cards around to increase willpower by 3. You can discard another card, both players can discard a card and increase willpower by 2 more. So now we're at 9. And then you got Galadriel Stone, she's at 11. Maybe you get a Favor of Lady, or 1 or 2 of those on there. So she's going to quest for 11, 12, 13. And what that's going to do is, if you only have 1 person on the quest, but they're questing for that much, when those Necromancer's Reaches come out and those treacheries deal damage to all your exhausted heroes, well, if only 1 hero is exhausted, it's pretty easy just to let that thing pop, and then just go ahead and heal it off with the Daughter of the Nimrodel. Alright, events, we don't have to talk about every single one, but basically I like to run 1 of these as an insurance policy. I have 2 in here just because we had the deck space. Fortune and Fate, that's in case anybody dies from a Hummerhorns or Shadow Effect or whatever. It's nice, you know, I will run 2 if I have the space, because sometimes you can bottom deck this card and just never see it, and then you might as well have never ran it because it's just taking up deck space. Okay, we got our 3 Test of Will, it's one of the best cards in the game, y'all know about that. Okay, cancels any when revealed effect. Eleanor can only cancel Treachery, this can cancel anything on anything, so even the King Spiders, when revealed effect that exhaust your characters, you can cancel that. Dwarven 2 pulls those Test of Wills right out of the discard pile. This is like another one of those Spirit Keep Going cards, right? One of those Spirit Keep Going cards. You can pull some Stand and Fights out and play. You can pull Stand and Fight out, play another ally right in the combat phase after an ally just died, and block with it again. Spirit's all about keep going, just keep going, keep playing your deck. Okay, Strength of Will, combos with Eleanor, because if she doesn't cancel a treachery, you can exhaust a spirit character to place 2 progress right after traveling to a location. It's also a cheap card. You got to run 3 of these when you're playing the style we're playing, which is questing and willpower. You got to run 3 Galadriel's Greetings, because it just keeps you out of those enemies' line of sight as long as possible. That Iasaran doesn't know where you're at. Alright, Hasty Stroke is just test a will for shadow effects. Great card, I love the art. And Secret Path is just, I had 3 spaces left, and it was between Secret Path, Erebor Hammersmith, or a couple other cards. You can see them down here in the sideboard. I just threw the Secret Paths in because location lock can be a thing, and this can keep you from playing the Northern Tracker. If you don't have enough resources, it can still do a good job at negating locations for a few rounds. This card will be replaced very early on with Strider's Path as soon as the Hunt for Gollum card pool is added to our decks upon the first expansion's release. However, still a good card. This will come in even more handy in the second quest, assuming we're trying to do all these quests with basically the same cards. In the second quest, there's some very, very high threat locations that can ruin your entire game plan if you can't do something about them the second they come out. So I went for this card, 3 copies, but alternatively you could put a couple Laureen's Wealth in there. If you plan on paying for it, you could put a few more allies in there. I don't like to put too much green lore cards until we get that Song of Wisdom in the expansions, because that Song of Wisdom is going to give these heroes lore icons and give you better resource smoothing. So I try to keep the lore cards down to a minimum cost. We already have 3 cost 4 snares. You're usually only going to need to play like 1 of those per quest. And then the other lore cards are either really cheap, or they're cards that you can ditch into the discard pile and then play again with Stand and Fight. Alright? Will of the West is the last thing I'll mention. This is the ultimate keep going card. So after you've played your Dwarven Tombs, you played your Stand and Fights, you've gotten your deck, it just continues to go, play out of the discard pile. You're going to notice this mechanic in Spirit for the entire run of the game. This card lets you to do it all over again. You recycle your entire deck back into your discard pile, back into your deck, and you do the whole dang thing over again. You get your Dwarven Tombs back, you get your Stand and Fights back, and then if you run 3 of these, it's pretty ridiculous. Then you can play this game all day. It's just like now it does get removed from the game when it's used, because there's no go forever card in this game. It's removed from the game when it's used. That used to not be that way. If you have an original printing of the core set, it doesn't say that, remove Will of the West from the game, but they changed that so the card wouldn't be broken. Well, I just talked there about basically every single card we're using, and this is the Passage Through Mirkwood redo. So I just figured I'd take a little more time, go over every little thing, and now we're going to get into the quest. So we've got our heroes set up. We're going to set our threat to 29 because this player's threat costs are 12, 8, and 9, which add up to 29. It's that blue number on top. And then this player's starting threat's going to be 26. That's what the blue numbers add up to, and that kind of represents how much the Eye of Sauron is taking notice to you. The more powerful heroes you run, the higher your starting threat is. Now, why does that matter? Because your loss condition is you lose at 50. If any player reaches 50 threat, they're immediately limited from the game. I do want to mention for this channel, I will be playing all these quests in two-handed playstyles with cards that only out at the time of the release of the quest. So that's called progression style. And every quest we will beat with all of our heroes in play. Nobody's died, or at best they've been fortunate and fated back into play because it was only a flesh wound. And we will never have a player eliminated from the game from threat. That's a real win. A real win in these quests is a clean run. A clean run. Now obviously there's some quests that are ridiculously hard, and you're not going to always be able to do that, but that's what we're going for. We're going to try to beat every quest progression style, using only the cards that are out at the time of the quest was released, two-handed, using our heroes here, that whatever 6 heroes we use, they will all survive the quest. If a hero goes down, you never leave a man or woman behind. You got to go get that hero. You got to finish the day with that hero in play. We don't leave a man behind. We don't leave a woman behind. We don't leave a hobbit behind. We don't leave a creature. Anything we have, we don't leave it behind. So, that's our guidelines for these quests. That's what we're going for. That's the goal here. And if you're a new player, the goal is also to learn as much as you can about the game and have a good time. And here we go. So let's shuffle up our decks here. And we're going to set our starting threats, and then we're going to draw our 6 cards. The first player will keep this hand no matter what. This is amazing. This is incredible. The second player will shuffle their deck. Draw 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're definitely keeping this too. Both of these are incredible. This is going to be easy, guys. I shouldn't say that. Knock on wood. Alright, now that we're all set up, we've got our starting threats, we've placed our heroes on the table, and we've drawn our 6 cards, and we have not taken our mulligans. If you want to take a mulligan, you get shuffle your 6 cards back into your deck and you draw again. Each player can do that once. You have to keep the second hand though. So if it's okay or better, I'd just roll with it. Unless there's a card you absolutely need. Actually, let's read this here. So let's set up our encounter. Flies and spiders. You are traveling through Mirkwood Forest carrying an urgent message from King Thranduil and da-da-da. We already read this in the first video, but the music was loud, so here we're going to read it again. Bringing a message from King Thranduil to Lady Galadriel of Laureen. As you move along the dark trail, the spiders gather around you. Okay, so we're going to search the encounter deck for 1 copy of Forest Spider and 1 copy of the Old Forest Road, add them to the staging area. Then shuffle the encounter deck. Okay, so we've got our enemy, our Forest Spider, we got our location, and we're going to shuffle the encounter deck. Boom. And here we got our flavored text. So this is a generic, this is going to set up the great expansion. The first cycle is the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle. It's your flies, your spiders, your orcs, Anduin Valley, Mirkwood Forest, Dead Marshes, in and around the borders there. You know, the border of the Mirkwood Forest near the Dead Marshes, the border of the Mirkwood Forest, Anduin Valley, the Falls of Rhoros, Amon Hen, Amon Law, the River Anduin, Cobwebs Abound. That's what the whole Hill Trolls. That's what Dol Guldur, the Fortress of Dol Guldur. That's what this whole cycle revolves around. Just like a real solid taste of a little bit of everything Sauron has to offer, and this world has to offer. And I think it's a great location to stage the first expansion, because it's like we're not getting deep into Moria, we're not going to Mount Doom. It would be so unthematic if, like, in the first cycle they just threw you into Mount Doom. And I really appreciate the designers of this game. Nate French did the first cycle. He did a great job. The first cycle is a lot better than people say it is. It is the weakest of the cycles, but that's naturally going to happen when you're designing a game. You know, like, people say it's the worst cycle, but that's like, it's the worst of a bunch of shiny gold nuggets. You know, it's like we're dealing in gold. We might not be dealing in platinum yet, but we're dealing in very, very expensive gold. It's a great cycle. I don't care what anybody says. Displays all the fundamentals of the game. Nate French did a great job with it. Caleb and the guys took it to a next level. Nate French did a great job with the cycle. Did a great job designing the game. It's my favorite game of all time. And I think that they did a really good job how the theme, everything came together. And like, the Mirkwood cycle is a great location to start off, because it's like that Dol Guldur fortress and everything around there that was creating all that havoc, the necromancer and all that havoc in Mirkwood before the Third Age. Oh, before the war, the big war in the Third Age there. The War of the Ring, I guess you'd call it. His presence there was like, nobody even really was sure that was Sauron, or they didn't want to admit it. But so you have all these things popping up, like kind of like at the beginning of Game of Thrones, where like there's rumors of magic, but when you're all the way out in Bree or Rohan or Gondor, or I guess Gondor's on the front lines, they know what it's all about. But when you're all the way out in Rivanion or all these places, nobody knows Sauron's up to that much no good already. But you got the Dol Guldur fortress, you got his creatures around there, so there's a lot of evil and havoc, but we're not on the front lines yet. And I really like how that all comes together and makes a great theme, right? And you can imagine the people of Middle Earth like trying to come up with their explanations of what's going on around here. Why are all these strange spiders acting crazy and all these things popping up? Is it just a dragon? Is it just a beast? Is it just a spider? Or is there like the Dark Lord at work here? You know what I mean? And for that reason, absolutely love the cycle, and I think is absolutely the best place they could have started. Because it also gives you a taste of, it's centrally located. It gives you a taste of all the different traits still splash into the core set: Rohan, Gondor, Sylvan, Noldor, you know, Dunedain, Dwarf. The other lame thing they could have done is they could have just started you out with hobbits and put you in the Shire. Like, that would have been so lame. You know what I mean? Like it's cool that they waited on that for the Black Riders box, because who wants to like just start with 6 hobbits and like your cards are like you're eating bread, or you're you know, like singing songs, smoking pipe weed, and your threats are like, you know, little tiny spiders and stuff. It's like, that would have been, I think, taking it a little too far the other way, where you're like too far away from the front lines. You know what I mean? So anyway, enough rambling about the theme of the game, although, you know, that's part of what I wanted this first video to be about, was just more talk about the game as you play. So here we go. We're going to get started on the first turn here. We've got our setup. We've got our spider. We've got our old forest road. We've got our generic theme, traveling through the forest to get a message to Lady Galadriel. Let's flip the card. This needs 8 quest points to beat this quest. The nastiest things they saw were the cobwebs, dark, dense cobwebs with threads extraordinarily thick, often stretched from tree to tree or tangled in the lower branches on either side of them. There were none stretched across the path, but whether because some magic kept it clear or for what other reason, they could not guess. That's from The Hobbit. So we need 8 quest points to beat this quest and advance to the next card. So I already told you the way you lose is your threat reaches 50. It starts 29 and 26. The other way you can lose is if you lose all your heroes and they all die. The way you win, if it gives you no other win condition, is just to progress through these quest cards. There happens to be 4 of them in this quest, and you progress through these with your willpower. You need to apply your willpower to create 8 points of progress, we'll call them. Progress tokens. So, the very first thing that happens after the setup, now that we're set up, and this is a fixed setup, it's like this every game, whether you have 1 player or 4, you get an enemy, you get a location. Very first thing you do is we're going to have the, obviously we've randomly chosen our first players here. We've got our guys set up, we've drawn our opening hands, we've set up our encounter set. And now the very first thing is the very first turn begins. And the very first thing after the setup, I should say, is the first turn begins. And in that first turn, you go to the first phase of the turn. And that's the resource phase. So what happens there is all your heroes generate 1 resource, that's like your mana. And then the first player draws a card and the second player draws a card. That all happens simultaneously. Okay. Now we go to the second phase of the game, which is the planning phase. The planning phase is where players in turn order play whatever cards they want to play to prepare for that round, because the enemies are about to take a turn after us. So, the first player plays any attachments, allies at once, and the second player plays any attachments and allies at once, and then anybody at any time can take actions and play events. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend 2 leadership resources. They're those, since they're purple characters with the leadership symbol on them, we can play for purple cards with the leadership symbol on it. You have to match the resources you spend. So we're going to spend the 2 off Theodred and Aragorn, and we're going to put the Steward of Gondor on Aragorn. Okay. Now, that costs 2, the cost in the top left-hand corner. Aragorn gains the Gondor trait, and then we exhaust Steward of Gondor to add 2 resources to the attached hero's resource pool. Let's do that right now. Do that any time, but let's do it right now. So it just paid for itself. We got our 2 resources back. Okay, and now we are going to play nothing else. And then before we move to the second player's turn, we're going to take an action. We're going to exhaust Bearvor. It says choose a player. That player draws 2 cards, limit once per round. We're going to choose the first player to draw 2 cards. 1, 2. You limit that once. That's awesome. You limit that once per round because it used to, and if you have a first printing of the game, it does not say limit once per round. It just says action, exhaust Bearvor to choose a player. That player draws 2 cards. So theoretically, if you could find ways to ready Bearvor, you could draw more cards in the same round. But that's busted. So rightfully, they did a nerf and they did an FAQ entry and made that card a little more balanced. Okay. Now the second player is going to take their planning. The second player is going to play the Wandering Took. No, it's not. The second player is not going to play anything. I'm just going to leave with what we got. Alright. Now we're going to take an action. We're going to move to the quest phase. This is the third phase of the game. This is the phase where we commit our character's willpower to try to put progress on the quest. In this part of the game, you can kind of freely take action, so we're going to spend one resource to play this card. It's called Sneak Attack. It's a leadership card. Put one ally card into play from your hand. At the end of the phase, not the end of the turn, but the end of the phase, if that ally is still in play, return it to your hand. So you're about to see you've seen one of the most popular cards in the game so far. You're about to see two more. So there's Sneak Attack. We're going to put Gandalf in play. He's going to leave at the end of the phase if he's still in play. So if you notice on Gandalf, says at the end of the round, discard Gandalf from play. If he's in play at the end of the round, he goes away. But Sneak Attack's going to let him go back to our hand at the very end of the phase. So for one, we get access to Gandalf's Enter Play ability. Response: after Gandalf enters play, draw 3 cards, deal 4 damage to an enemy in play, or reduce your threat by 5. We are going to deal 4 damage to this spider. Usually you want to reduce your threat, but we're just going to try to plow through this quest and take care of all the things out here. 9 times out of 10, we'll say 7.5 times out of 10, I reduce my threat. But we're going to deal 4 damage to the spider. That's enough to destroy it because it has 4 hit points. Its defense of 1 does not apply because this is not an attack. This is a card effect. An attack would be like if I exhausted Gandalf to use his 4 attack, which is the second number 4 from the top, to attack something, then its defense would apply. But that was not an attack. That was simply just when Gandalf enters play, you put 4 damage on something. He like shot a fireball as soon as he entered play. Alright. Now, as a group, the players are going to go questing. So we're going to exhaust characters to quest, and we're going to apply their willpower to the quest. So we're going to exhaust Gandalf. We're going to exhaust Theodred and Aragorn. And that's 4 willpower on Gandalf. That's the top number below his cost. So the 4 below the 5. And then there's 1 willpower on Theodred and 2 willpower on Aragorn. So altogether they're questing for 7. Theodred has a response. After he commits to a quest, choose a hero, commit to that quest, add 1 resource to that hero's resource pool. And then Aragorn has a response. After Aragorn commits to a quest, spend 1 resource from his resource pool to ready, and boom. There you go. We netted, we broke even on resources, and we have our best character standing. Okay. Our best character ready. Standing is Game of Thrones terminology, and this isn't Game of Thrones. The last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones is what, in my eyes, brought Lord of the Rings back on top as the greatest fantasy world ever. I would have said it was Game of Thrones buried. The books, let's be honest. Side note, books Game of Thrones still rule, by the way. If they ever get done, they have potential to be the greatest fantasy genre ever. But those 2 last seasons, whew, that was just... Okay, back to the game. Alright, so second player is going to quest with Eowyn for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're questing for 11 willpower total. We have an opportunity to go up to 13 because Eowyn has an ability that says each player can discard 1 card to give her +1 willpower until the end of the round, or until the end of the phase, and that can be triggered by triggered once by each player once each round. Alright. 11 willpower. Now at this point, we... Make sure I shuffled this. Okay. At this point, we reveal 1 card per player, and now the enemy gets to play its cards off the top of the encounter deck. It's called revealing cards from the encounter deck, and we can't interrupt any of this. You can take responses to like cancel cards and things like that, but you cannot like do things in the middle of these cards being revealed. There's another forest spider. That's why we killed the first one, because I figured that would happen. Necromancer's Reach. Deal 1 damage to each exhausted character. So that's 1 damage on Gandalf, 1 damage on Theodred, 1 damage on Beravor, 1 damage on anyone. I'm fine with that. Okay. There's 3 of these in the deck you gotta watch out for. Because all 3 of them will kill Eowyn if all 3 of them hit you. 11 willpower against 3. That's 8. That's already enough to beat this quest. So we just plowed through that. Let's go to the next quest card. Second of 4. 2A, a fork in the road. As you move through Mirkwood hounded by spiders, the forest path forks before you. A fork in the road, 2B. Only 2 quest points to defeat it. It says, when you defeat the stage, proceed to one of the 2 chosen path stages at random. So we're going to be like shuffling up. These are both quest 3, spoiler alert, and we have to pick one at random. It's a 50-50, whether you get a really tough enemy or more you can sneak by him and have to quest a little bit more. Alright. In the first video, we escaped, we eluded the enemy, played right into our strategy, and we were able to quest our way out of it without fighting the very tough enemy. But you wouldn't have known that because the music was way too loud. Alright, so now we're going to travel to, at the end of the quest phase, Gandalf comes back to my hand. And now we go to the travel phase. Okay? We're not going to travel anywhere. If we wanted to, we can make this the active location. When you travel to a location, essentially, you pick one location that's out in the staging area, and you make it the active location. That means we're currently there. Its threat of 1, the top number there, is no longer applied. That's the number that goes up against our willpower. So when I said we were questing for 11 willpower, we were comparing that to the 3 willpower, 2 from the spider, and 2 threat from the spider and 1 threat from the old forest road. That's why 11 minus 3, we made 8 progress. Okay? Had we have failed, let's say they were 12 up there and we were at 11, we would have had to raise our threat by the difference. You know? And if you break even, nothing happens. Alright, so if we were to travel here, it has an effect. It's one of the few locations in the game that actually help you. Because after you travel here, the first player may choose and ready character controls, but we don't want to travel there. We want to leave this here when we absolutely need it, and we're gonna progress because Legolas's progress, assuming he can kill this enemy this turn, is gonna beat this quest as well. So that will make our fork in the road decision for us. So now, as Billy Boyd sings to us, we are going to not travel anywhere, then we're going to go to the engagement phase. Now in the engagement phase, each player has a chance to optionally engage one enemy in play. And after that, enemies do engagement checks. I'll show you how that works. Let's just assume both these players pass any opportunities to automatically pull an enemy down and engage with that enemy. Okay, so we both pass. Then we make engagement checks. What happens here is you take a look at your threat, which is 29. You go in player order. So the first player's threat is 29. You find the highest engagement cost enemy whose threat is at your threat or lower. So any 29 or lower. Now this is a 25, and you engage that enemy. And then you do the second player would do that, and the third player, and the fourth player. And then it just keeps going until all engagement checks are made, and there's no more possible engagement checks. Alright. So now that he's engaged, he has a force effect. After Forest Spider engages a player, it gets +1 attack to the end of the round. So his attack goes up to 3. Okay? Now we will go to the combat phase. Okay, this is the last complex phase of the game before we reset. So, at the beginning of the combat phase, every enemy in player order and engagement cost order gets a face down shadow card dealt to it. This is like an effect that can boost up its attack or do some other crazy thing before it attacks you. So it's like a way of a randomness to the game, so additional randomness. So not only does he have the 3 attack, but he has a possible extra effect he's going to get when he attacks us. If there was another enemy here that was like engagement cost 30, since this is engagement cost 25, we would deal the shadow card to this enemy first because it has the highest engagement cost. Then we deal it to this enemy. Then we would go to the next player and then we deal its shadow cards to its enemies, etc. Alright, at this point, we are going to, as Annie Lennox sings to us, we are going to sneak attack Gandalf again. Got a really good hand here. Put 1 allied card into play from your hand. At the end of the phase, if the ally is still in play, return to your hand. So he's like, guys, I thought I helped you already. He's going to come and play. We are going to lower our threat by 5. Okay? Because when he enters play, we can choose one of those things we want to do. At this point, Gandalf is going to defend for 4. And this is going to attack us for 2. Excuse me, it's going to attack us for 3. Then we flip his shadow card. There's no shadow effect. A shadow effect on, see this forest spider here, how it has a skull on its card? Everything below that is considered a shadow effect. That does not apply when, like, this forest spider's in play with us right now. Everything below that skull basically doesn't exist on his card. But when he comes up as a shadow card, everything above the skull doesn't exist on the card. That's how you have to think about it. It doesn't even exist on the card, you're just flipping it for a shadow effect. Even if this card here were to say, when revealed, do something, you're not revealing the card. You only reveal a card when it comes off the top of the encounter deck into the staging area or wherever. This is a shadow card. You're just flipping in and resolving a shadow effect. Alright, so 3 damage, 4 defense. We compare its attack of 3 to its defense of 4, and we determine that no damage gets through. Okay, and now it's our turn to attack. After all enemies get done attacking, the players have a chance to attack. So we're going to attack with Legolas and Aragorn for 6. It has 1 defense, so we'll do 5 damage. 6 minus 1 is 5. It's enough to destroy this enemy. It gets discarded. Okay, when you discard this shadow card with the enemy, they can be discarded in any order you choose. That might matter for a quest down the road. Otherwise, if we were not to destroy this enemy, all the shadow cards would get discarded at the end of the combat phase. Not right away, at the end of the combat phase. There are some exceptions to that, but they're not important right now. Legolas will then trigger his 2 progress after he destroys an enemy response. And we will determine what we see on the horizon here. So that's going to complete this quest, and then immediately we advance to one of these 2 quest stages at random. So we're still in the first round, by the way. So let's flip a coin. Heads is this one, tails is this one. It's heads, so we're gonna pick this one. Hey, look at that! We got the hard one. That's what I wanted. See, when we played this originally, we got the one of these plays into a tactic strategy where if you want to fight a lot, you want this one. If you want to quest a lot, you want the other one. So this will be a little bit harder in our last playthrough, but we'll see how we do. Alright, let's read the flavor text here. The trail winds into one of the darkest, most tangled parts of the forest. You sense a foul, dark presence is haunting you and move quickly in an attempt to avoid its evil. Okay. Don't leave the path. The shadows grow darker and you realize a foul presence is aiming to draw you from the path. You must defeat it to pass this way. When revealed, each player must search the encounter deck and discard pile for 1 spider card of his choice and add it to the staging area. The players must find and defeat Ungoliant Spawn to win the game. So we have 0 more quest points we need to progress, but we have to find and defeat the Ungoliant Spawn, the King of the Spiders or Queen of the Spiders, to beat this quest. So each player's got to pick a spider out of the discard pile or the encounter deck and put it in play. Now, you don't have to do Ungoliant Spawn right now, but you do have to eventually find it and beat it to defeat the quest, so I am going to do this right now. For the first player's choice, we'll do Ungoliant Spawn, and what this does is, like, if you were not to pick this, there's a chance it could come up later as like a shadow effect, and then you have to go through the whole deck again to find him, and maybe you never find him, right? Because it could keep coming up as a shadow effect. So we're just going to put him out there right now. And then the second player's got to pick somebody. Now, if you want to see more enemies, I would suggest pulling out of the discard pile, because then you keep the enemies in here. If you don't want to see more enemies, I would suggest pulling out of the encounter deck to clear more enemies out. So you have to pick another spider enemy. Your choices are basically between the King Spider, which there's 2 of. And if you pick him now, we ignore his when revealed effect because he's being added to the staging area. He's not being revealed. That's 2 different gameplay terms that are important to understand. If he was being revealed, it said search the encounter deck and discard pile for 1 spider enemy per player and then reveal those enemies. We would have to do that, but we're just adding it to the staging area, so we don't have to do that. So you could pull one of these out right now, to avoid seeing it later and avoids when revealed. But I think I'm just going to go with the regular forest spider in this case. Okay, then we're going to close and shuffle. And we took that out of the encounter deck. Anytime you search the encounter deck, you shuffle, or anytime it tells you to. Alright, now, at the end of combat, Gandalf returns to my hand. Alright, now, remember, that was the end of the combat phase. So the great thing about Legolas taking that quest out early, with the 2 progress, is you get to pick these enemies and get to see them a little bit early. So you get to pick these enemies out, you get to put them up here, all that stuff. And then you don't got to worry about them coming out and fighting you the same round. You can kind of see what's going to be up there already next round. So let's go ahead and do our first refresh phase. Alright, we ready all our cards. We raise our threat by 1. We pass the first player token. Alright, now let's go to the next resource phase. Every single hero gets a resource and each player draws a card. Wow, look at that. Okay. Now in the resource phase, I'm going to exhaust the Steward of Gondor to give him 2 resources. And then I'm going to exhaust Barivor to have the second player draw 2 cards. Okay, that works for me. Alright, at this point the first player is going to take their planning. And they're going to play... Oops. Play Wandering Tunic. And they're going to play... Glaewine. I'm just getting as much out here as possible to get chump blockers and then try to kill this guy in 1 turn. We need 11 attack to kill him in 1 turn. Alright. The next player is going to play... Gandalf for 5. And we will go ahead and kill the forest spider. After he enters play, deal 4 damage to 1 enemy in play or reduce your threat by 5. We're going to kill the forest spider. Get as much threat out of staging area as possible will set us up for a win. And now we're going to play for 1. Snowborn Scout. After he enters play, choose a location, plays 1 progress token in that location. So this is your Rohan Scout. It's your only Rohan in leadership right now. And only Rohan character. There's 1 Rohan character, I believe, in each sphere except for Spirit, but Spirit gets its first Rohan character of many Spirit Rohan characters in the very first expansion. So we're going to place a progress token in that location when he enters play. This is, you want to run 3 of these in every leadership deck because this is a great blocker, great 1 cost chud. Also, if you're running Leadership Spirit, he's a great combo because you can play a Rohan character and then later on they're going to get a bunch of effects that allow you to like discard the Rohan characters and do all these amazing things in Spirit. So he's a really good one to use in purple and blue decks that run dual sphere. Alright, so now we're going to go questing. We're going to quest for 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think that's it. I don't mind raising my threat this one, because I just want to get this spider down here as fast as possible and kill it. So we're just going to quest for 4. We'll discard, just because I'm sure we'll have to. I'm going to discard a card for Eowyn to increase her willpower by 5. Second player discards that card, and the first player will discard 1 of these. Okay, so willpower 6, requesting for 6. Let's see what comes out of the encounter deck. Already there's 4 up. There's 4 up there. There's 7, so we're already down by 1. And there's 8, 9, so we're down by 3. So we're going to raise our threats by 3. We quested unsuccessfully, and we lost by 3. That's fine. We're about to win. We don't have to quest successfully anymore. All right. I foresaw this happening, which is why I considered either saving the resource for this or playing the Protector of Laureen and discarding 3 cards to buffer willpower by even more. But I just thought to get an extra chump blocker out here in case we draw like 2 enemies, and then one of these guys could defend one of these guys could defend the other. And I suppose we already had 2 chump blockers, and then it's going to take all of these guys attacking, I believe, to kill the Ungoliant spawn. So we just need some bodies on the field in case we get more enemies if we want to win this round. Alright. And it says, after you travel to the forest gate, the first player can draw 2 cards. These are the only 2 locations I think in this quest that help you. In most quests, no locations help you. They'll at best give you conditional benefits, but we might as well travel here because we don't need to make any more progress. So after we travel here, the first player draws 2 cards. Okay. Cool. And then now we're going to do engagement. So we'll optionally engage here, and then we'll optionally engage here. Combat. Everybody gets a shadow card. This is a guy you got to watch out for if you're building a low threat deck, because he comes and he attacks you with 3 attack at 5 anyway. It's that Goblin Patrol, the East Bight Patrol. Alright, and now we'll take a chance here, and we'll defend with the Wandering Took. For 1. No, he'll die anyway, won't he? The most he can attack for is 4. So don't want to get any damage on our heroes. So we'll go ahead and we'll defend with anything in the discard piles I could bring in. Alright, Wandering Took's gonna take it to the face. 3 attack, 1 defense, gonna do 2 damage and kill him. No shadow effect, 2 damage. Boom. Boom. Alright. If I had the quick strike, I could have killed him first, but I didn't. Then we wouldn't have had enough to kill this guy. Alright, at this point, Snowborn Scout's gonna defend the Ungoliant spawn and we're gonna pray. Shadow effect. No, that's what I'm afraid of, but I think we still have enough. Or we have shadow cancellation. Got a shadow cancellation? No, we don't. See, now I wish I would have defended with this guy. Oh, we still got this, guys. We still got this. So, remember how I said we want to take that King Spider out of the encounter deck and void its effects? Well, we didn't. So, defending player must choose and exhaust 1 character controls or an exhaust Theodred. Okay. Now it's 5 attack, 1 defense, 4 damage. Boom. Okay. Now, we'll go ahead and exhaust Leowine to have the second player draw a card. In order to beat this on this 1 turn, I'm 1 attack shy, so I'm going to do a trick. I'm going to play Stand and Fight. I spent 2 resources to play this. I'm going to make X cost 2. Choose an ally with a printed cost X in any player's discard pile. Put the ally into play under your control. It can belong to any sphere of influence, which means anyone but Gandalf. Anybody but a neutral character. Alright, so he's in play, and now I'm going to do his action. Reduce your threat by 3 to give control of Wandering Took to another player. Raise that player's threat by 3. So we'll reduce our threat by 3. Raise this player's threat by 3. He comes here. And now we go to declare attack step. So, if she attacks him, it's not going to do any damage because it's 1-to-1. So she's just going to sit tight. And then we'll attack this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which is just enough. 2 defense, 9 damage. That's the game, guys. We win before Legolas gets a chance to trigger progress. In 2 rounds, we have defeated Ungoliant Spawn and defeated a Passage Through Mirkwood. And I hope you enjoyed this redo with improved music, with the deck list in the description below. And this will serve as a foundation for everything forward. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a good one.